Hello from Florida. How's everybody doing today? I'm Tony.
And I'm Leona.
And welcome to Tony and Leona Live, where we're going to broadcast live, multiple times a week. We don't like to give too ardent of schedules here, but this is our second official live stream. We used to be podcasters. Now we're live. John, we got here, our producer, friend of the show, contributor. John, thank you for joining us. It's been quite an interesting day. We wanted to just start with a story about, we should tell the first part first. So we've been trying to get bunk beds for the kids for how long? Years we've been discussing it for.
And we've moved a ton.
We've moved a lot, and I've always been hesitant of getting them too. But since we're at the new house here, we decided that we were finally going to bite the bullet and do it. So we went on Facebook Marketplace, found some options. What were the two different options you found?
Well, we basically ended up going with the least expensive option we found that, based on reviews, said it was still sturdy. So
it had to do with our mattress combination. Long story short,
we
wanted
twin over a queen.
We wanted what did we want? Twin over a queen?
Yeah, because those are the mattresses we have, and we didn't want to spend more money on a new twin mattress. Plus, it's less space.
Were you talking about single or twin? Or single and twin the same
thing?
Those
are the same.
This is where it's confusing because that's what we got. Is that what you told me we were going to get?
A full over a
That's
queen.
what I'm trying to get
to. About? Yeah.
So Facebook Marketplace.
Full over queen.
Yeah. And I went with the trailer, picked it up, got it, and brought it all the way back here. Then we found out it wasn't a full over a queen. It was
a twin over a queen.
Yeah. And so we decided, what should we do? We double checked the listing, and they definitely, we don't know if they did it on purpose or not, but
it was advertised as a full over.
Yeah. And we do have a single mattress. So we were like, well, let's just, over the principle of it, let's just make the seller aware and let them know what happened and see if we could work out something. And we never heard back from her.
Yeah.
And you only reached out once. And so I don't know. What do you guys do? What would you do in that situation? Would you contact the seller? Would you just bite the bullet and say, well, we got it on Facebook Marketplace? Anyway, so we finally decided that we're going to move forward with setting it up. We had it sit here for
contact seller
a day.
Agreed.
Yeah, we tried. And so we got it fully set up. I had to drive to the hardware store, get some extra hardware, get it all set up. And what happened with the kids? They were so excited, for one.
Yeah, I mean, they've been waiting for this for literally years, and then we had it here in the house for a day.
I had my video camera, and the kid Max has got a big grin on his face. Cruzy's talking about how it's the greatest day of his life, and
get the sheets on the bed. Max climbs up to the top because he's going to sleep on the top. He's our oldest. He jumps down once from the top, the twin, onto the queen, which, granted, it kind of invites you to do that because the mattress is, the lower mattress is wider. But he jumps down. I tell him not to. Max, this isn't for jumping. That's not made to hold you. You cannot jump on that. It will break. He did it a second time. That time I didn't say anything. I was in the middle of getting stuff done. I'm like, he absolutely knows he should not be doing that. He did it a third time.
Boom.
Bent. The base of our brand new used, but still brand new to us. Definitely not bent when we got it.
Yep. 4 inches went like this.
Yep. Right
in the first 10 minutes of having it set up.
Yeah.
So interesting stuff. But yeah, what a night last night too. We were up. It was our first live stream yesterday. As we stated, we wanted to kind of focus like a hawk on these elections that are coming up in 2021 and 2022. I usually stay up for elections on election night when it's a big one.
So I eventually went to bed. I'm in bed trying to sleep, but not asleep yet. And I hear Tony clapping. And it dawned on me, never once in 9 years of marriage and 11 years of being with you, have you stayed up late to watch any professional sports team, any sport, despite the fact that you love football, you love basketball, you love baseball.
Love playing
never
sports.
Once have you stayed up late to watch a professional sports team. But last night, there he is staying up late listening to the Virginia, I think mostly.
Well, yeah, it was the Virginia election because that was the one that took the longest. And
he said we're on the big screen.
And Terry McAuliffe didn't concede.
Right.
And it was late in the night, and we were going to hear from Youngkin. And finally, I don't know what time it was, Eastern time. It was probably around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock that the major news outlets declared Youngkin the winner. And I was cheering.
Yeah.
I was clapping. I was excited. And
As-
we should say, too, congratulations to Winsome Sears,
Yeah,
who is
absolutely.
the lieutenant governor. The way that they do it in Virginia is that you elect your lieutenant governor and governor separately,
yeah.
which is different than like what a state like Minnesota does, where they run on
Together.
a ticket.
So Winsome Sears was declared the winner prior to Youngkin.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
Which is awesome. So yeah, huge congratulations to her. She's an incredible woman. It was fun to tell the kids about her today. And
yeah, she made history. She's the first Black woman, maybe is just
she's
African,
the first Black person
to win a statewide
in Virginia.
election in Virginia.
Yep.
And so that's historic. And, she's conservative. She's Republican endorsed. And she's already getting into it with Joy Reid. I don't know if you saw that controversy, but
I didn't. You mentioned it to me. But
yeah, we'll go over. I don't know if you guys heard about the Joy Reid controversy, but yesterday when Joy Reid was talking about it, so this is from Real Clear Politics, posted by Tim Haynes on November 3rd. Virginia's newly elected Lieutenant Governor, Republican Winsome Sears, spoke to Fox News host Martha McCallum on Wednesday about MSNBC host Joy Reid, saying that the Republican Party, so this is what Joy Reid said, quote, "The Republican Party is dangerous to our national security because they stoke white supremacism." And Sears did not take kindly to this. And this is why I think the Sears gal, she's going to be a rising star in the conservative and libertarian circles, because she went right after it. And this is what she said to Martha McCallum. She said, Sears said, "I'm destroying all of the narratives about race. Look at me. Look at me," Sears said. "I wish Joy Reid would invite me on her show. Let me see if she's woman enough to do that." And she went on to say, "I'm a heartbeat away from the governorship in case anything happens to the governor. How are you going to tell me that I'm a victim?" Sears said. "And I didn't do anything special to get here except stay in school and study. I took advantages of the opportunities here in America."
I will say she has a remarkable background. She immigrated here when she was 6.
From Jamaica.
From Jamaica. Yep. Sorry. And she's a Marine, correct?
She was a Marine. She's a veteran. Yep.
She also started, I actually meant to look into this today and I didn't look into the details, but she started an organization to help homeless people. This is all prior to her entering politics at all. And now she's, yes, a woman who's lieutenant governor, which is awesome, but also the first Black person to win a statewide
Absolutely.
race.
And she ended it too. She said, "We can do better. It's not 1963 anymore." So she kind of used that a lot during her campaign. And so she came on and spoke first. So I saw her speak. She gave a great speech. And then they brought on Youngkin, who first was introduced by his family, his wife, and they told the story about how he decided to run. Youngkin was the CEO of the Carlyle Group, and he retired from this position. So he was with that company for 20 years, and he retired or resigned early because he felt a calling to run for the governor of Virginia. And he told his wife, and his wife was like, kind of thought he was crazy, and he mentioned his kids too, but they supported him, and he went on to run, and she knew he was going to win. Which brings us to the point, he was an excellent candidate. But yeah, there was a lot of right away, a lot of blowback from progressive circles, both on TV and online, and saying that they got to stimulate harder, they got to get the infrastructure bill passed, and that this backlash is all about not passing infrastructure, which I don't know if that's the case or not, but we're going to talk a little bit more too later on about some of the other things that they were saying. But before we do, did you guys see Sweeney, who is the state Senate president in New Jersey? He's the longest serving legislative leader in New Jersey history. And he's on the verge, and they haven't declared it yet, but he's on the verge of losing his state Senate seat and also presidency to what could be just a huge and stunning political upset. Did you hear about this story at all?
Yeah, that's what I said too. He may lose to a truck driver.
Yeah,
right?
This guy Edward Durr.
Yeah,
he's a conservative truck driver, and he reported to the campaign finance that he spent only $153 on his campaign, and he currently is leading the powerful Sweeney by over 2,000 votes in South Jersey in the 3rd legislative district. So I'm looking at the New Jersey Globe here, an article written by David Wildstein, but that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Only spent $153. So this just shows like this growing backlash that's occurring, and there's multiple reasons for it. I did see that they declared Murphy, who's the incumbent governor in New Jersey, they declared him to be the winner. It was a razor thin margin.
Yeah.
And it was an extremely close race. The polling ahead of time, even polling that was done, and I'll pull it up, the 538 poll, I think had Murphy, the Democrat, winning by 11 points or over 2 digits.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is a few days just before. So it begs a few questions. What's wrong with their polling? Why aren't they accurate? Is it done intentionally? I know 538 is more of a conservative leading polling company, but the expectations going into New Jersey is it was going to be a blowout, and it turned out to be razor thin, which to me raises a few red flags. I think that hopefully people are keeping a close eye on this election, but. I wanted to tell a story. We were talking earlier, and this will lead us into the next topic of what you're seeing online from a lot of people who are, I don't know if they're trying to downplay the victories yesterday, or if they're trying to excuse them, or if they're just trying to knock their opposition or people who they're opposed to. But when we were traveling to Florida from Minnesota, we stopped at Jimmy John's. And actually, we went to the hotel first. You guys were in the hotel. We were all hungry. So I went out to get us dinner. And I went to Jimmy John's, drive-through, got 3 or 4 sandwiches, and paid with two $20 bills. Yeah. Totally exhausted. It was like 9 o'clock at night. We'd been driving all day. It was some random exit off of Illinois, right where the Illinois and Missouri border is, I think. Just like a highway town. And anyway, so I get the sandwiches, give him $40, $2.20. He gives me the change back. I kind of just look at it and put it into the cup holder, and I'm waiting for the sandwiches. And then I'm like, wait a second. And I went to the change, and there was he basically shorted my change like by about $14, just doing the quick math off the top of my head. And so I knocked on the window, told him what happened. He gives me some money back, doesn't give me the correct amount back. I knock on the window again. I'm like, this is what I gave you. And his manager came in. The manager totally solved it. The Jimmy John's manager was like, I don't know what he knew about this guy, but he's like, I'm so sorry. And I didn't.
This does relate to the election, by the way.
And so the long story short is, when I go to another Jimmy John's, or if I go to another sandwich place, or if we're traveling and we go to a random restaurant in some random town, am I not going to go? Am I not going to go to any more Jimmy John's? Am I going to be skeptical of going to Jimmy John's? Am I going to think twice about it? And the answer is, yeah, I'm still going to go to Jimmy John's. I'm still going to go to other restaurants, but I'm going to check my change quicker. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to double check it, and I'm going to triple check. So leading into, sorry for that elongated story, but it does relate to kind of what you were seeing online.
Well, I had a question. I also want to get to these questions that are listed here. But since you just were talking about Jimmy John's, my question was, why do you accept the current results in the governor's race in Virginia?
Say it again now. So what's the question?
Why do you accept that Youngkin won in Virginia?
Right. So the question is, if the elections don't have any integrity, and if we have so many problems with elections, like how can you say that Youngkin won?
Yeah.
You're like, are you just picking it and choosing which elections that you're going to accept?
If I like the results.
Yeah. If it agrees with me. Mm-hmm. And I think it brings it's maybe a good kind of a straw man argument to make in the public, but to me it doesn't really hold water. And we were talking about this. Am I going to trust all the election results? At this point, we're going to watch the elections like hawks.
Yeah. And
that's one of the reasons why we're doing the show. It's one of the reasons why we spent 4 hours and a couple hours even after watching the election, seeing what's going on. And so many people have been paying attention over the last year about our election, about the election processes, about how we count votes, about the backdoor processes and the various election bureaucracies and how they interact at the local level, state level, and the federal level, and how that equates to constitutional elections. So the answer is we're all going to be paying attention to these elections. We're going to be watching them like hawks. We've been educated. Anybody who's paid attention, I know producer John, he spent a lot of time with me researching just the facts, how our elections take place, how does it work in Wisconsin versus how does it work in Pennsylvania, how do they do their elections in Florida, how do they count the ballots, what's the various hands, what's chain of custody, all of that. And people are much more aware.
Adjudication? Is that
adjudication, duplicate,
I never knew that word existed
files, like how the machines operate. And so that's actually been an awareness that's taken place that you're not going to be able to take away from people. So now we have millions of poll observers that can watch election results from our computers, from the TV, and we know what certain red flags are. And so just that in and of itself is going to clean out the election process a little bit. Is it going to solve the problems? No, I can't say that for sure. But
these are some good questions. One, McAuliffe never conceded. I was going to say that before. He still has not.
I think he did.
Correct?
I heard on the radio that McAuliffe conceded to his supporters by email today.
Okay.
But I didn't actually verify that.
And then a comment here, people saying that Fox News was one of the last to project that Youngkin won, which doesn't necessarily surprise me.
Fox News was.
I can't believe it. Yeah,
that's interesting.
It is interesting. Question from Kelsey. Business partner in New Jersey says voters are complaining of voting machines changing votes to Dems. That's interesting. That was an interesting race.
In New Jersey?
Yeah.
And we don't know much about that. And that's something we should definitely look into. But probably shouldn't speak about without knowing for sure exactly what's happening with that situation. Keep going, Lee.
So question up here. About the timing of Youngkin's speech last night. Yeah, coinciding when Biden landed back in the U.S., when he made it back from the climate summit. I'm not sure exactly what it was called, but I heard something interesting today. I was talking to a friend who lives in Minnesota, who said that she went online to look at, she knew that the mayor had been reelected in St. Paul, but she wanted to see the breakdown of the numbers. And she went to look, and I forget what the source was that she said, but it provided all the detailed breakdown in Minneapolis. It provided the results to the ballot question in St. Paul, but it didn't give the breakdown of the mayoral election in St. Paul, which is interesting. It was almost like they were acting like the Twin Cities is all just one place.
So this is from The Hill. Julia Manchester reported today at 9:58 Eastern Time. McAuliffe concedes Virginia governor's race to Youngkin. I'll just read what the details were. He didn't concede last night, which some people took as kind of like a swipe or cheap move. Or it could be, maybe he just steered into a different course because of just the overwhelming amount of votes that he lost by. So it says, according to The Hill, former Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe conceded to Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin on Wednesday, hours after Youngkin declared victory. He said, "Congratulations to Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin on his victory." McAuliffe said in the statement, "I hope Virginians will join me in wishing him the best, to him and his family." So respect for that, for taking that action. And that's the other, kind of counter to what you were seeing, people saying, "Oh, now you believe the elections." It's like, we always should strive to have faith in our election system. And that's why we are paying attention to it. That's why we're educating ourselves and also learning about what can be done differently in various states to make them more secure and to make them have more integrity with their system. Youngkin was an incredible candidate in a lot of ways. Last night was the first time that I saw him speak. I didn't realize he was so tall. he speaks energetically. You kind of get a feeling he's a little bit corporate in America. I mean, he was the CEO of the Carlyle Group, so you can definitely see that part of it. I'd never seen him speak before. But one thing I was impressed by was his acceptance speech. He actually laid out his policies for what he wants to do with the educational system there. School choice, giving parents choices, not just their local public school, charter schools. And he didn't go so far to say anything about a tax credit or any sort of voucher system, but he did mention school choice, and he won on education. So he proved that Republicans can win on some of these issues that get parents and just people fired up, everyday people. And so that's something that hasn't been done successfully. And Youngkin did it.
It's interesting because you would think that should be the only way to win. Like, that's who you're running for, is the common everyday person. Like, that's the majority of us in our country. You'd think that we are the ones who would have the say.
So we'd like to thank the people who did tune in yesterday. I looked at the stats. Absolutely. We had 50 unique audience members out there. I think the average time people spent streaming was like between 7 and 12 minutes. It was hard to tell exactly what that was, but we certainly appreciate everyone who just tunes in. Absolutely. We're going to do this regularly. We told you, John, this is our backdrop for now, but we're working on in that room over there to have a studio, and we want to have a green screen. We're going to get some better lights, although we are using lights right now. I don't know if you can tell or not, but I do have a different setting on the microphone. I think that it did actually work yesterday. I reviewed some of the footage.
We weren't sure if it was.
We got some feedback from some of our audience members, and I actually appreciate criticism that people give to me in private versus like public criticism that the whole world can see. But I'm going to work on looking into the camera more, smiling more, trying not to move around as much as I do sometimes. I like to, have a little bit of ADHD or whatever it is that you want to call it. It makes me a little fidgety sometimes. So,
and I need to stop yawning.
Down. And Leona needs to stop yawning.
I think I yawned 3 times.
But you did great. You look great on camera. You look at the camera more than I do, and that's an important thing.
You were also making fun of me earlier for, what did you say? I pulled a Marco Rubio.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know what he meant when he said that.
Leona, yesterday, we had popcorn for a while, and I watched Leona. She grabbed the piece of popcorn and she kind of went like this. Like she was off the camera or something. But I called it the Marco Rubio moment because you remember when Marco Rubio did that, when he gave the refute to the State of the Union address when Obama was president. He did the famous.
Was it with drinking water?
He went like this. Like he could just dodge it or something.
Didn't Ted Cruz also do some really awkward water drinking where he was like mid answering a question and was like, and then
remember Trump would do that too, but then you'd start to mock him too. He would just troll it. So we want to talk a little bit about the Minneapolis race here. I think this is pretty amazing. They didn't declare this yesterday, but it was determined today. 5 Minneapolis city council members lost their seat. Jeremiah Ellison almost did. He somehow snuck it in.
Wow.
He only got 38% of the vote, but because of the way the runoff works, Jeremiah Ellison barely hung on to his seat. And maybe he didn't. He wouldn't surprise me if he's the kind of guy who didn't campaign and doesn't care. They elected me anyway. Kind of like that type of thing. But this is from Bring Me the News. Just to give it what they're saying by Seamus McLaughlin, Bring Me the News. 5 Minneapolis City Council members ousted as final outstanding races are called. And it says, was the election a referendum on the public safety question? Yeah, I think it probably was a little bit. The 5 Minneapolis City Council seats still up in the air as of Wednesday morning have now been settled. City election officials posted unofficial results for the undetermined wards 1, 2, 3, 5, and 10 that afternoon after tabulating the second and third choice votes. So Ward 1, challenger Elliot Payne held on to his lead, garnering 50.2% of the final vote. So he unseats incumbent Kevin Reich, who finished with 45%. Ward 2, challenger Robin Wansley Warbala eked out a victory, in a race for the incumbent. Cam Gordon didn't make the top 3. Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Ward 3, Michael Rainville defeated incumbent Stephen Fletcher, tallying 51.7% of the final vote to Fletcher's 42%. Ward 5, that was Jeremiah Ellison. He barely held on to his seat. The big one, though, that we saw was, what is her name now? Letitia. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, you showed me her video. It
Where is she? Did I pull that up?
brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah. So yeah,
We need to find.
Her name's
we need a way to
Latricia.
pay it.
Latricia,
Yeah, Latricia
Viton.
Viton.
She crushed council member Felipe Cunningham in North Minneapolis's Ward 4. And
Yeah.
the interesting thing with Latricia, total grassroots candidate.
Yeah,
You should.
Awesome. So
We'll
cool.
post the link for the YouTube video on WCCO, but she was interviewed. Genuine person. I don't know what her politics
short
are. I'm
video.
sure
It's
we would
worth
disagree
watching.
on a lot of things, but I would vote for that woman for city council because she's authentic. She ran for the right reasons. She ran on a straight public safety messaging campaign. You know, she thought defunding the police was a crazy idea, and go figure, the people in North Minneapolis in her ward, they supported her. They were all behind her while she's getting
Yeah, it was
interviewed.
beautiful.
They're clapping.
Yeah.
Everything, you know what I mean?
She
You
talked
just-
about door knocking.
Yeah.
Well, and then the interviewer asked her, it really is worth asking or worth watching. What did he say? How do you feel about being the first Black woman elected to city council in that ward?
Mhm.
And he said, have you thought about that? And her
Yeah.
her response was so genuine and also touching. She was like, well, I'm thinking about it now because you just said it.
Yeah, and her
Um,
voice is cracking, and she's
Yeah,
about
it
to
was
cry.
really beautiful.
And when we get our
It's
streaming software, I'm just doing the research to find out, but we'll be able to show this
Post the
video.
link. Oh yeah, we can probably post it in,
Yeah.
in the
I'll
chat.
send it right now. But yeah, it's an incredible video,
Yeah.
and it's heartfelt, and it just gives you this feeling. When I saw that, I got teared up, and I'm overly
Too,
emotional.
for
I
sure,
just
chills, yeah.
I'm emotional, but it was like one of those few moments in politics that was purely, it was a genuine moment.
Mhm.
And
you're
it
like,
was-
oh, there
it's
are some
why
good
we have
things
it. It's
about
why we
politics,
have
yeah.
the system the way that it is, so that people like Latricia,
Mhm.
who are fired up, who want to change their community for the better,
Mhm.
can get out there with the support if she's got an issue that people actually care about. And she did it, and she
Yeah.
won.
It's awesome.
And bless her for that. And she's a great example of why other people need to step up
Mhm.
and run more. You know, especially in these local seats, the city councils, the school boards. That's where you can make a huge difference. You know, people
Matters.
overly
Matters very
glorify
much.
politics, and they only think about Congress or they think about other things. But it's a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely. Question: where is your blue shirt? We were talking yesterday about consistency. Not wearing a blue shirt today.
blue shirt, no blue
Today I
shirt.
am. I feel like it'd be awkward if we wore the same thing every time, wouldn't it?
Yep.
But I totally am with you on John, on consistency being important.
What's so funny?
This comment. I got emotional watching MSNBC anchors' faces last night.
I was
With the
amazed at
race in Virginia.
how fast they're all pivoting these losses, though, and just writing them off to to not stimulating hard enough or not passing the infrastructure bill. I didn't see what Biden's comments were. I'm gonna look up what he said. But you talk for a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I'm still on the clothing. You literally wear the same thing every day. I've never noticed you wearing the same
Who?
thing always.
Me?
This comment, no, just saying that you could wear the same
Oh.
thing for every show for consistency.
Hmm.
But yeah, maybe a color scheme. I don't know. I just don't want to spend money on new clothes either. Too cheap in that regard. What were the other? Was anything surprising from last night? I think the one thing I was surprised about was how close the New Jersey race was. I think that's the one thing that was surprising to me. I wasn't surprised about the governor's race in Virginia.
I mean, yeah, the Northeast states, they have way different politics in terms of what a Republican is and what a Democrat is. You know, if you look at like upstate New York, like the Republicans there are much different than like your Republicans that you'll find in Florida
Yeah.
or the Republicans that you'll see in Minnesota. Governor Chris Christie, he came from
Oh, he did. Yeah.
New Jersey,
That's
so
right.
he was probably the last
was elected
Republican to be
statewide
elected
there,
there.
yeah.
But it's similar to Massachusetts. Mitt Romney, Republican, elected in Massachusetts, extremely, you know, liberal, progressive state, and he governed that way too. You know, which
I was
always
going to say
made it hard
he's
for him to run for
somewhat-
president. But you know,
Yeah.
he's less strong on the Second Amendment. You know, pro a lot of the social issues.
Mhm.
He's not very conservative. So, and he's the one who came up with the framework that Obamacare was used, Romney Care in Massachusetts.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So Biden, this is the AP by Colleen Long and Amar Madhani. It says Biden says Virginia race was not blowback against him. That's interesting. President Joe Biden said Wednesday the Democrats' setbacks in Tuesday's election underscore that the party needs to produce for the American people, but he pushed back against the notion that the off-year election results were a repudiation of his presidency. Biden suggested that his inability to get Congress to pass a $1 trillion infrastructure deal and a $1.75 trillion package of social and climate programs ahead of the voting didn't make a difference. In Virginia's governor race, Terry McAuliffe lost to the first-time candidate, Glenn Youngkin, as we've been talking about. And Biden said, I think we should have passed it before Election Day, Biden said, but I'm not sure I would have been able to change people's minds in Republican-leaning areas anyways. He added, people are as upset and uncertain about a lot of things, including the pandemic, the job market, and the price of a gallon of gasoline. That's true. Biden made the comments to reporters after delivering remarks to highlight what he said was a great day in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic as children 5 to 11 became eligible to begin receiving the preventative vaccine. So they're shifting it to young kids getting vaccinated.
Is a vaccine ever not preventative?
It,
I mean,
it was a spot of good news, and did they time it out this way too? You know, it was a spot of good news for Biden, who returned to Washington early Wednesday from Europe. It was a disastrous trip to Europe for him. To the news that McAuliffe was narrowly defeated by Youngkin, a first-time candidate. I don't know what's your guys' opinion. Was this a referendum on Biden? Was the Virginia loss by McAuliffe referendum on Biden, or is it a referendum on the Democratic Party? Is it just a referendum on all this progressive overreach that we've been experiencing?
I say
Or
that.
was it just that McAuliffe was not that great of a candidate and Youngkin was? But, you know, you look at what happened in New Jersey, you tend to think that, you know, it's trending a different way.
Yeah.
And I tend to read it more as this is a repudiation of overreach by the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. People don't want the far left Democratic agenda coming into their lives. They certainly don't want it in the school, in the classroom. And I think that this is all pushback to it. Is it a vote against Biden? I don't think so. What do you think?
I agree with you, which isn't very interesting, but I do agree with you. However, that's kind of my bias. That's probably how I would see it. So that's how I interpret it. It's hard to know because every state's going to do different things, and people have different opinions. Some people still really love Biden or at least are so thankful he's in. And, you know, it's not like the whole country feels one way. But this is a question. Do you think other Republicans will follow Youngkin's model in keeping Trump and MAGA at arm's length during campaigns?
Well, did you see Van Jones, what he said about Youngkin?
No.
He said he described Youngkin and the movement behind Youngkin as the Delta variant of Trumpism, meaning it's Trump, but it's the Delta variant. You know,
Trump
Delta's
2.0.
Corona, but
So he's saying Youngkin is just another version of Trump?
He's Trump, but with a little bit softer message, and he's going to enact Trump policies. And but man, they still tie everything to Trump, don't they?
Yeah.
Everything goes back
Which
to
is
Trump.
great. I mean, I fully, you and I have had talked about this a lot. There are plenty of things I dislike about Trump, but holy moly. I mean, I think the humanitarian crisis at the border is worse. Our economy is worse. Our excess deaths this year are worse than last year, despite us having a vaccine. Education is getting worse, especially for those who are historically marginalized and currently marginalized in our country. Like, perhaps we name rights and discuss rights more under this administration, and it's good to name and discuss rights, but I actually think that we are removing people's rights. We say we have public education, and yet we're not providing it for every child in this country, which is appalling. We're not protecting the right to bodily autonomy. Like, I really struggle to understand which policies of Trump, even historically Black colleges and universities are less funded under Biden. Like, all of these things in terms of policies, I really struggle to understand. In terms of verbiage, I understand seeing how Biden seems more empathetic or something, but in terms of policies and how all of us are being affected, I don't get it. And I don't at all see how Youngkin is like Trump, unless we're discussing better policies.
We'll see.
I mean,
we were talking about the difference between Biden and Trump. Do you remember Trump's first year in office and that laundry list of accomplishments that he had in the first year?
Yeah.
And then compare that to Biden's first, 10 months in the office now?
Yeah.
Where's Biden's list of things that he's accomplished? I mean, he really hasn't accomplished anything. And I think that's probably the biggest risk that Biden has, is if he's looked at as somebody who's just there to fill space and he can't get anything done, that's going to be a problem for his credibility. So they just want to get something done. They want to get some boxes checked where they can say, this is what Biden did. Because look at, what was the first thing that Biden did when he was elected?
The pipeline.
The executive order to end the Keystone Pipeline.
Yeah.
What do we have now?
But some people are happy about that.
They're not happy with the gas prices. And anyone who could put two and two together will see that if we would have had that, even Canada and Trudeau wanted that pipeline.
I know.
And we stopped that. We had energy independence in America prior to him taking office.
It's just so interesting because I still see a lot of people say Biden, I'm still grateful. Like, I've seen people ask, like, okay, what are people happy with Biden for? What things are people happy about? I still see rejoining the Paris Climate Accord and caring about climate change as big things. And again, in his wording, he certainly seems to care more. I don't think Trump ever said he actually thinks climate change doesn't exist, but certainly his wording it sounds very flippant. I mean, he talks about the hoax of it, but I don't think he's saying the hoax is that climate change doesn't exist.
So I'm looking at 538 here, and I don't know exactly what 538 is. If it's a conglomerate, it's a website that's got all the polling agencies for various races. You can search it. I think 538 does their own polling too.
Yeah, I thought.
But I looked up the governor of New Jersey race just to see. So added on November 1st, Research Co., the Trafalgar Group, and Rutgers University. They had Murphy up 6, up 4, and up 8, respectively. We have the Monmouth University poll, which was done on October 27th. They had Murphy plus 11. Here's the Emerson College poll. They had Murphy plus 4. So the ones that are like the lower ones, they're at least in the neighborhood. But the race was just a point or half a point difference.
The race was so tight.
Yeah, so they're at point plus 9, plus 13. Here's one that's closer. National Research Inc. Had Murphy plus 3, but they all had Murphy winning. And one thing that people have become aware of, because the polling was so wrong in 2016 when it was Trump versus Clinton, and it was even more wrong during the Biden-Trump election. They said that Texas was up in the air. They said that Florida was up in the air. They said that Ohio was up in the air. And those were all blowouts. They weren't even close. One of the theories that they do with this polling is they create this idea that this race isn't even close. It deflates the opposition supporters. Yeah. It makes people think like that their vote's not going to matter. But the other more insidious motive for creating this perception that it's going to be a blowout race is that if it's close, then people aren't paying attention to it. Yeah. They're not paying attention to what's happening. And so last night when I was cheering on Youngkin and Sears at 2 a.m. All the stuff was going on with New Jersey that I wasn't paying attention to.
Sure.
You know, not to say that I'd make any sort of, but nobody was paying attention to it.
Right,
and even
right.
still today, all people are talking about is Virginia and Youngkin and Sears,
what's happening in New Jersey
and the Minneapolis stuff and how close New Jersey was.
Yeah.
And that's the big surprise. But nobody's questioning like how close is it really?
Yeah.
And you know, but it looks like Murphy's gonna move forward and maintain or retain his incumbency there. So interesting though.
It is very interesting. Interesting about the polls.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you saw today that you wanted to discuss?
I enjoyed learning more about Sears today. That was a fun and positive thing. Yeah, pollsters are the new weather people. They can predict very incorrectly and
just a couple legal cases that are going on right now. How do you say? Is it Ahmaud Arbery from Georgia?
Ahmaud
Arbery. How do you spell his name?
I think it's Ahmaud.
That trial is beginning in Georgia. You know a little bit about that one, right?
Yeah.
Can you describe it?
Well, I first heard about this. This young man, I used to know how old he was. He was very young. He was murdered. He was out on a run in Georgia. Awful. Not only was he intentionally murdered, the people who murdered him, like, left their homes, packed up their guns, and followed him when this man was on his run. 3
white men.
Yeah. And they were not even, I want to use the right terms. They were not even, not tried. They were not even sentenced. No. What's the first word?
They weren't investigated.
Yeah,
they weren't
charged. At all. Yeah, they were not charged at all. That's the word I'm looking for. Until people signed petitions. Like, that's how I heard about him, was signing a petition for the men who seemed to have murdered him to at least be charged. And then finally they were, and I think one of the men, it was really sad. It was like a man and his son, his adult son, and then another man. I talked to a friend who lives in Georgia who was saying what these men tried to say is that Ahmaud Arbery was trespassing on a home, but he was going for a run. And she was saying that in Georgia, many people, when a home is being built, so like very beginning of a home being built, that people will look and see like how it's being built and things like that. And when she moved into her home, people were like, oh yeah, we looked at the layout of your home in the very beginning of it and things like that. So, I mean,
well, here's a little more. Here's from the BBC. This was just published not too long ago, today, just a few minutes ago. This is BBC, no author given. The trial is beginning of the 3 men accused of killing black jogger last year in broad daylight in the U.S. state of Georgia, and the community at the heart of the racially charged case is on tenterhooks. What does that mean? Ahmaud, how do you say his name? Ahmaud Arbery was shot on the 23rd of February, 2020 in confrontation with Gregory and Travis McMichael. It took more than 2 months for the men to be arrested, along with the neighbor who filmed the death. So that's how it came about.
Yeah.
Was the neighbor involved in it, or he just was filming it as a bystander?
I don't know.
Lawyers for Mr. Arbery's family have called his death a modern-day lynching. The McMichaels argue that they were defending themselves while trying to make a citizen's arrest. Mr. Arbery's mother tells BBC News that she plans to attend every day of the trial in honor of her son. So the people on trial are Gregory, Travis, and William Bryan.
So Gregory and Travis are the father and son.
And William Bryan is the neighbor who filmed the video.
Yeah.
They were arrested in May of last year, and they faced 9 charges, including murder and aggravated assault. So jury selection is going to be starting, but we'll watch this case. We're not going to follow it in gross detail, but we're definitely going to see, kind of what comes about this. It says, how did Arbery die? At least these are the facts again from the BBC. A neighborhood resident, Gregory McMichael, told police he believed Mr. Arbery resembled the suspect in a series of local break-ins. Police have said no reports were filed regarding these alleged break-ins. Gregory McMichael and his son Travis armed themselves with a pistol and a shotgun and pursued Mr. Arbery in a pickup truck through the neighborhood. According to the elder, McMichael, he and his son had said, stop, we want to talk to you. So vigilante justice, and this is one reason why I totally support police. Like, it's good to give a monopoly of force on the police. Like, having these armed vigilantes pursuing people. It's one thing to defend yourself, which I support, but pursuing people in the name of justice.
They pursued an unarmed person who they thought was maybe a suspect in these alleged robberies.
So he must have started.
He literally was going for a jog at this time.
And it said post-mortem examination showed Mr. Arbery had 2 gunshot wounds in his chest and a gunshot grazed wound in the inside of one of his wrists. He did not have drugs or alcohol in his system. Not that that would really matter, but we'll be watching that. And then the other case is the one out of Wisconsin, the boy from Illinois. What's his name? Who shot the 2 kids in Kenosha.
Oh, yeah.
That trial is going on right now.
No.
Do you know what his name is?
No. Is it Jacob? I think I'm wrong.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Oh, Kyle. Yeah.
It says, and then the top story with this is Chicago Tribune. Kyle Rittenhouse judge stops proceedings, fumes about media criticism. So that's him right there. He's gotten a little older over the last year. But this is from Yahoo News. Stacy St. Clair and Christy Gutowski, Chicago Tribune, Kenosha, Wisconsin. The judge in the Kyle Rittenhouse case went on a prolonged rant against media criticism of the case Wednesday, saying he has followed the law and any assertions otherwise could be detrimental to the community. Kenosha County Circuit Judge Bruce Schrader began his unusual soliloquy. How do you say that? Soliloquy by referencing a recent media report that called the case the most divisive trial in the country. So, I haven't paid too much attention to this case, but it's going to ignite people's passions. If we all remember what happened in Kenosha in the spring of 2020, horrible riots. And we remember Kamala Harris, she went there. And
Maxine Waters, I think
even Biden went and visited them, or they called him on the phone or something. But
Kyle, no, you're mixing up stories.
Am I?
Yeah.
But that's what the riots started from, was not Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yes.
But he was there that day.
Yes.
Or those days where Kenosha was burning to the ground. So.
Yeah, you're right.
But, Leona's yawning. But so we're kind of reaching the end of our stories for today, but we wanted to thank everybody for joining us. We wanted to congratulate all the winners of the 2021 general election. We're 365 days until the 2022 general election. We're going to be focused like a hawk flying for its meals in the nighttime on these elections. And we're going to be finding the candidates and the races that we need to pay attention to. Because this is how we restore our country and our Constitution, is through these elections. They're not perfect. They're not, we can make them better. We can make them more secure. But we need to be vigilant. We need to be vigilant for these next 2 cycles that are coming up, because everything's on the line. They always say this is the most important election in our lifetime. Well, I think 2022 may be the most important election of our lifetime. And if yesterday is any indication about where we're heading for that, it's going to be a great year in terms of victories for people who want to be able to raise their families in a free and prosperous world, in a place where you have the liberty to go to whatever church you want, to see whatever doctors you want, to choose the medical procedures that you want, to live free. And but we thank you all for tuning in. We ask you to subscribe and like this video, and we'll see you the next time that we're live. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.